Montage. I can never unsee this.
Patio, chatio. Whatever it was.
With the echo?
You stop laughing right now. We just become best friends. And we're the 3 best friends that anybody can have. I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you.
The echo? Telling you.
You boys like Mexico? Yeah!
So new studio, well, newish studio.
Studio.
No, just new studio.
Studio.
Newer studio swaps. I don't know. I mean, it's all the old stuff, but it's in a new place.
Right.
Or a new position. That's what we do here.
Oh. That's our mission.
What's that?
Very.
No clue what you're talking about right now.
A position, just of the sexual type.
Of the sexual type.
Sexual chocolate. So.
But yeah, this is a new studio position. We've changed a few things.
You got to move things around every once in a while.
Better camera angles and lighting. And yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking about this today. From about 2 years ago when we started doing video. But if you look at it even further, 2 years before that, when we were just recording, just audio, the progression that you can look at over that 4-year span is it's a mass difference. I mean, it just for what we were doing, it was like such quick leaps and bounds, I think, for us and our abilities. We went from goofing around to like all of a sudden it's like, oh, crap.
I don't, like, in some ways I still say like the old conversations were better because we knew it was audio only. So there was nothing, like dead space was not allowed because there was no facial expression that would come across. Like,
we would have to paint the word picture, air quotes.
Only what you could imagine based on the sound of our voices and the intonation, our tone, whatever. Yeah. Like, make assumptions and giggle to yourselves, hopefully. But
dude, oh man, like,
oh man,
no, seriously, watching the most current episode we just put out, which was the Terrence Howard wrap-up with Eric Weinstein on Joe Rogan.
There's the camera. Looking at me. Sorry, go on.
In going over, because we do our own input here. Like we help with all that kind of stuff and editing and whatnot. And we are a family that does multiple tasks.
Poorly.
Talking with listening to that episode, I was talking quite a bit about how like Eric Weinstein was very hypocritical in having the juxtaposition of what he was saying and what he was doing didn't quite match. So his words and his actions did not come together for me, and I was rather livid about some of that.
Yeah, you were pretty hot about that.
Oh, more so when we got to the AJ the Y files. But yeah, no,
yeah, forget about that.
Yeah, I definitely went off the handle on that one. But yeah, but it's.
I see where you're coming from, and actually, since then, I've all but stopped watching. I mean, if I see a good one come on, I'll watch it. But I'm not. They've been kind of putting out like bunk lately, like.
Well, they've also been doing a lot of compilations,
and now I'm all disenfranchised from that freaking fireside chat BS that he pulled. Or his
garden,
his little backyardigan.
That I don't know if that's an insult to him or the backyardigans, but
little patio chatio, whatever it was.
Patio chatio. That might be a new segment here. Oh,
bro!
But
I'm loving that idea.
But yeah, no, it was. I did. Just as the segue on that was, it did remind me a lot of the hypocrisy of that. And it just, the fact that it's nice that we can have those kinds of discussions and those kinds of opinions, and we can agree to disagree, but it's nice to have a platform where you can do that, and you're respected and appreciated for doing it too. You know what I mean? Thank you at home for listening to us.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the stuff with AJ or the Y-Files
We're back on that shit again.
was like he took the fun out of it just in that one. Like if you hadn't heard that, it might have been a little different, but it was like for him to just come out and say a lot of the stuff he was saying during that shorty.
I mean, it was only like 10 minutes long.
Yeah. I was trying to think of another rhyme, but
Patio chatty.
Patio chatio.
Yeah.
Backyard shenanigans is...
Well, and I've said this for a while now, is quite often when I did watch episodes, it wasn't just for the content. I was also looking at the production aspect of it. Because, we're trying to always improve ourselves as well.
Honestly, that's a lot of it for me, is the production value of it.
It is a quality production. I mean, even in the last episode, as we're referencing, I did, in fact, say that. That I felt it was a good production. However, my position is because, I've now seen behind the curtain. I've seen the great and wonderful Oz.
It's a lot of work.
It is, which again...
And I think maybe some of it is AI. I think.
Well,
some of the imagery and...
To me, the long and short of it is that it's a quality production. Which, again, I do respect AJ as an individual. We've made point that he is an entertainer and he's doing his job and he's doing it very well. He most certainly does put out quality work, as far as his background research, putting the episodes together, production. I mean, so like every bit of it, there's definitely
the claim is still that they get all the material ideas from their listeners, from their viewers.
Oh, yeah. But again, it's even though it's a quality production, the fact that I got to see behind the curtain, it really, like you said, it disenfranchised me. It did. You ruined the magic. You ruined it, AJ.
Like the video we took was right after it was our first conversation about it. So I was still kind of defending him at the time. But like, honestly, since then, especially like the more I've thought about that it wasn't even an interview. Like it was just...
It was a one-on-one, him with the camera.
His little soliloquy, which was completely unnecessary. Because he could have just said, I'm not going to go there. It's not my usual thing. Boom, done.
Well, and this goes back to the point you were making. He's an entertainer, so perhaps he was, in fact, hamming it up. While he presented it as, this is my personal opinion just after watching, this is my initial reaction. I mean, that could have been scripted as well. To a degree, in the sense of, I want to do this, but it wasn't legitimately like he does for his real shows, physically scripted. They do a couple of renditions.
What that told me is that it wasn't even believable enough to be fascinating to do a show on. Because everything else, if he says everything's bunk, what's it matter if you do like a whole, 30, 40-minute show?
Depending, yeah. He's like anywhere from 30 to 50 at best, but typically it's around a 40-minute mark.
Not quite an hour. And that's a decent amount of time to be sitting there watching a video. And that, like you said, quality production, no matter what he's putting out, it's always a quality production. But it ruined, like you said, it's like you showed me too much. Like it just like I can't think of it the same way anymore. And since
I can never unsee this.
Since we had that conversation, the content that's been coming out has been like, a lot of it has been, I guess, them trying to play catch up, kind of like we are right now with our content. But yeah, well, it is true.
It's
all good.
We have so much back footage, and
But that's kind of what they're doing, is they're making montages in the meantime while they're
montage.
Videos where he's like mashing up a couple of different like short videos together.
Compilations.
The compilation, yes. But it's like lately, the material coming out is just lackluster at best. But the quality is always there. It's just, that's really not the issue. But I think some of it in the back of my head is like, keep thinking about that conversation that he had with us now. That patio chatio. It was just, it just ruined it. Like, why would you go there to prove a point that you didn't even have to prove?
Well, I mean, as he said, he was getting a lot of call out from his people, which he's got millions of subscribers. So I mean, that's a lot of people that are basically like, "Hey, bud."
It had to be enough for him to feel the need to.
Yeah. So I think he really did reference that. You know, I feel he referenced it enough to let it be known that this was not so much him giving a personal take as it was like, I've been kind of, put on point. I'm being held accountable for, I need to have a reaction to this. So this is going to be my reaction. I don't want to have a reaction. But he went into such depth to express that in doing so, yeah, he shared too much.
I think there'd be a way to come out and say what he was trying to say, that he doesn't want anything to come off sounding like a personal attack. So a lot of the subject matter that he accepts, that he does a show for, it's not picking on any one individual, maybe groups of people like government or something like that. But it's more just like the subject matter, and that there's a lot of material out there that you could do a good 45 minute episode roughly. So if that was the issue, just say that, and don't. With the one comment I think that he made, and I'm not going to get it verbatim, but the one comment that he made was that basically all of his material ends up being false. Everything to date, which I think he put that. He said with a few exceptions. Yeah, most stuff I can debunk. Some stuff is up in the air.
I feel it's the story that he presents, the idea coming from it where this main component is going to be true. There's too much debunkable things that I can't say yes.
Well, and he's got to work off materials that he has access to when it comes to science. And if he's not the sciencey type, like he said, just say it's not my arena. Like, yeah. It's a nice, easy, it's not my arena. Like, it's not the kind of thing I want to tackle. Like, on a case by case, I can look at every issue and go, yeah, I want to do a show about that. That intrigues me. There's a lot of stuff that I could write about, that I could do a show about, which apparently he doesn't really do much of the writing anymore.
We touched on that.
Or did he ever? Yeah, I don't know.
Originally, when he first started,
like, it was mostly him. But
no. Before he had a production team, when he literally started this all by himself, which was after him being on Joe Rogan's show. That was years ago. I want to say possibly pre-pandemic. Okay. I'll have to see if I can find it. It's probably backlogged or something. I don't know if we can grab it off YouTube or we'll
slip that in the chat or something.
Yeah, because I myself have not even seen his entire episode, which I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, it wasn't him and Joe Rogan. It was him and someone else with Joe Rogan. So I think he was a piece to a multifaceted conversation.
Oh, okay. So he wasn't popular enough to bring on as a lone guest, but
I mean, honestly, I would say, I think if anything, it was more of these two guests, him and the other individual, made for a solid conversation, or was there some form of, because again, I didn't see the entire episode. There may have been enough crossover between the two that, because I mean, Joe's known for having multiple individuals per conversation. Some people, it's their only spot. Other people, they've been on several times, and this is just a piece.
It's one of those things, like on a case by case. You look at that and you go, these two would really be interesting to interview at the same time and see what bounces off them.
Yeah, there's been those kind of episodes, so I haven't seen the entire, but I'll see if I can find it, because I'm kind of interested to watch it myself, because again this.
So here we go. Production value love the Y files, but when it comes to just straight up content, I mean, Joe Rogan's method for how he gets his episodes done is like right in line with what I love about that show. Like it's just, and what I want to emulate here.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a natural conversation.
Yeah, I like
You know,
that natural conversation.
There may be questions I wrote down ahead of time, but it's not like a scripted conversation. Like this is.
It's more of just like, oh, this is a really
I like
good question.
that
I want to remember that
a natural conversation.
Yeah, it's almost as if he writes them down because he's like, that's a really good question, and I want to remember to ask that because I want to know this myself. So there's a childlike, inquisitive nature that he has.
Well, and I think that's really what drives me for doing any of this is just the fact that I have an insatiable curiosity when it comes to the possibilities of the human machine. "Quote unquote" uncharted territory, although it's older than time itself.
The conversation,
the topics of the conversation, the fact that I truly believe that the human race is capable of many things that we're not even any more aware of, and that maybe we had a grasp on all of these little gifts at one time. You know, telepathy, the whole idea of being able to visit a distant area just by thinking about it or knowing the coordinates, be able to view it.
like remote viewing. Yeah, is that which you've been on that lately?
Or being able to travel astrally, actually travel there, like traverse as a ethereal spirit.
Well, before you continue, I mean, I
superhuman powers, you would think, like,
right. But before you continue, I want to say final thoughts on where we were at with the whole AJ thing and Joe Rogan with that episode is I do like AJ as a person, and specifically because seeing him on that little bit that I did with Joe Rogan and what I've seen of him more so as him, not him as an entertainer, but AJ that is an entertainer. I enjoy his perspectives. I enjoy his, his view or take on certain things, his grander ethos in a sense. I like him as a person, man. Like I really do. So you
feel the need to put that out there. Like, this is not hate mail at all.
Do not do that. And I said it before, AG, I do love you. I really do. And, again, as a person, the content or what you're putting out for your stuff, great production. I personally just, I don't enjoy it anymore. Although I do watch occasionally because I'm taking production notes.
And I've actually tried to. And it's not that I won't watch anymore because I see that they're starting to push newer content again, not all compilation videos. So I will catch it here and there, but I definitely don't give it the kind of attention that I give some of the other ones that I've just signed up for recently. So,
okay, I get that.
Because for me, it's all about decent content. Like I don't want to sit there and watch TV. There's a reason why I don't watch TV.
Heard and agreed.
Like good shows, a good movie, different.
Yeah,
but TV in general, I just...
Yeah, which you were saying, talking about ingesting good content, you said recently a lot of what you have been paying attention to, as you were starting to touch on,
Shawn Ryan.
Well, you were talking about remote viewing, but you've been riding.
Yeah, I mean, via the Shawn Ryan show, which that guy's pretty interesting in himself.
Wait, so he had remote viewers on his show?
Yeah, so the last, like I didn't want to say, I was trying to come correct. Like it wasn't the last two episodes necessarily that he aired, but it was the last two that I just finished watching. So one of them was a guy, and he was basically like the frontliner, the forerunner to the whole program for remote viewing. But I was trying to think whether it was FBI, CIA,
it's probably CIA.
It was kind of handed around, I think.
I want to say it was CIA. I recall as being the majority component.
But CIA at some point dropped the ball on it. So it's kind of you hear one side of the story from...
Did they?
Well, I don't know.
Redacted.
Who knows if redacted? Excuse me. I'm sorry. I don't know.
That's not how that works. You can't cough and say.
I'm not using the proper vernacular, so I should really just,
It's all good. But anyway, so Shawn Ryan had a remote viewer on who's basically the OG to the program.
So yeah, that was the guy. What the heck was his name? But just had him on.
The remote viewer himself. Is that the okay?
Yeah. But his interview was really interesting because he didn't even start it with asking a question. He said, just tell me I want to hear everything from like when you were a child on up. So he had this guy like basically told his life story. And I was getting a little sleepy and I think I cut off the video before the end. So I missed all like the really juicy bits. I don't know if he even got there or if he's going to have to save that for another episode, but how much he really talked about his experience in that particular program, or what was it? I can't remember the code name for it.
If I recall, nice segue. I believe the Y-Files did an episode of this.
Stargate. I think it was
Ooh, I think you might be correct.
I think it was the Stargate program. It's a remote viewing program.
Yeah, I think you might be correct on that, my friend.
And apparently, like, I guess a lot of these guys have a natural propensity through whatever growing up, like whatever incidents may have happened to them, caused them to have some kind of out of body experience, and
right, they had some form of experience that
because of that very, very open,
predisposed at that point,
right, on the wavelength, on the frequency.
It just had a natural tendency that seemed to be awakened.
But what is the frequency,
Kenneth?
I don't know. 432, 7.25 hertz. I don't know.
1.21 gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts. Maybe it's just cotton. I don't know.
Bro, oh my God, get out of my head. I so went there with you. What I thought we were in the trust tree.
Apparently not.
So then, have you not watched all of the, I guess, conversation between him and
I'm gonna have to watch the end of that one. And I can't remember the fellow's name right now.
So then you have not seen the entire episode, but
no, I didn't get a chance to actually finish it.
Yeah. Do me a favor, as I need to send you the AJ on Joe Rogan, you send me we'll fox together.
So I'll send you both episodes that I just finished. Yeah, because the lady he interviewed that was also a remote viewer,
So he has two different episodes with remote viewers, the OG and a lady.
Right. The lady, though, spends a lot more time referring to it as psychic ability, which makes me a little less comfortable.
Because you're using like fringe terminology.
Even though remote viewing was a governmental term. I mean, that was the reason.
Governmental term.
Well, I mean, like if you're trying to get funding for something, I mean, saying you have a psychic.
Yeah, right.
Is not going to hold the same kind of like factor as, remote viewing.
Remote viewing, meaning that we can actually look inside of the KGB. They have no idea we're there. I like it.
We're
it's
not
like some
actually,
sneaky shit.
We're not there. It's a beautiful thing. We're everywhere. It's freaking string theory, bro.
I think it's entanglement.
Everything's connected.
Wow.
Yeah. Same
bad time.
Same
bad channel.
Word.
But anywho.
What?
So you've been watching these episodes, and you said there's been multiple. So I mean, is there any take on this, or I mean,
on the remote,
were you just like informing, like I've watched this?
I do have to catch, because the more interesting one for me was the fella, the first guy that he had.
The fella,
the guy. So he was like the guy that really started the whole.
Yeah, the OG on the program.
The whole program, which I believe was called Operation
Stargate. Yeah, I think you might be correct on that.
Regardless of whatever.
Well, I've seen a few documentaries, in a sense, on this topic, that specific program and so on. So,
like this was actually funded. It had the backing of like Congress, like everything. Like it was legit, which to me, it's like, okay, it didn't last like a year or two. Like,
Do say like one more time, bro.
Because I don't know. I'm working with
Like a lot.
30 years maybe total
What's that?
that they worked on this material. I want to say something like 30 years. 20 to 30 years, something like that. I mean,
Well, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, the program itself as a CIA operation is, I want to say, was only about 7-ish years. I don't believe it was a full decade. And they supposedly protected, shut the program down. But I do believe,
shut it down.
I do believe from the documentary type episodes, videos, whatever you want to call it, that I've seen, the information that I've gathered that seems consistent is that there was a firm that was built around the idea of doing this, and they taught others how to do it. So they basically, monetized it. Not to say
They sold out.
Well, this is some of the individuals that were a part of the program going out on their own, privatizing it. But there is and there is not evidence to say that the CIA wasn't continuing.
Oh, by the way, this came out. This was like right on the heels of MK Ultra.
I believe same time frame, more or less.
MK Ultra was first, but
yeah.
There's speculation as to whether it's still running.
Dude.
Bro, I mean, because some of that shit's like Manchurian Candidate, bro. It's scary shit.
There was other movies that actually portrayed that as well.
Well, the whole idea was to be able to control somebody's actions and have them not have any recall.
Sleeper cells, as they would call them.
They wouldn't have any recall of the incident because it would be somehow compartmentalized in a different part of their.
They were hypnotized, so they had a deep-rooted subconscious memory.
Drugs, man.
That could be triggered.
It's drugs. It's LSD.
It sounded like you said jugs.
Jugs, man. Just jugs.
I'm heterosexual. I do like me some boobies, so.
No, I meant jugs, like, for water and stuff. No. Drugs. I said drugs, man. Drugs.
Are you holding? I don't understand.
They were on the acid, man.
Anyways,
they
to
were
not tangent too far.
They were making them take acid.
So, what again was your take
and torturing
from
them? Actually.
So, what was your take on or from these?
The first one was really interesting because you hear, I don't know if you do, but I mean, I've heard plenty of stories about remote viewing. However, getting it described to you from somebody who was actually there, who was in the military, and speaks of it very matter of fact, like this happened, this happened, this happened. There wasn't like, we're talking about sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. It was like every time this guy made a move on something, he was right.
From what I have seen, research-wise, I guess, documentaries, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff that, as I've been shown, yes, there was I
think that guy was actually quoted in that interview as saying there is nothing else that they have studied that has so much material come out of it. He was saying like over, I forget, I'm going to butcher it. I don't know if it's 900 pages, something like that, or more of material.
It doesn't sound like a lot, honestly.
Front and back.
But yeah, again, going to your point, I do believe from the information that I'm recalling, there was a extremely high rate of consistency in his accuracy of depicting information. So there's also an add-on of being given places in time. I think specifically was Mars, millions of years ago, ahead, current, the moon, current before, there was.
Again, I didn't finish that whole interview, and if it's that guy you're talking about, I don't remember much talk of Mars.
And they may have not, but
I know there is.
You have yet to finish it. Maybe
Right,
that's
exactly.
what's coming up is the Mars talk.
Well, and that's what I said. The interview was really interesting because he left him basically to tell his own story. He said, "I want to hear about what happened from childhood, because how do you hit a trajectory like this in like an ordinary life? I mean, because the guy's just an ordinary guy. Like, there's nothing special about him.
He can remote view,
but I mean, he's been through this same kind of some trauma that I've been through. I mean,
well, that's what I'm saying. Well,
really
that
crazier than that, but
gives a predisposition. But as far as I'm aware, they did.
Anybody can do it.
Well, they did. They did create a firm where they can teach you, and some will be.
Yeah, there's a school.
Yeah, some will be more accurate than others due to that predisposition. But more or less, going back to the whole Dr. Dispenza thing, is you can turn that DNA structure on. You can have this ability.
Some of it's just desire. But I mean, it's the same thing like with sports. It's like, you can have two people that have the same amount of desire and maybe even the same physical health, but one will outperform the other just for whatever other genetic factor there is. So everybody isn't necessarily on level ground, but just like anything with practice and focus, I suppose that's the claim, is that anybody could learn to remote view.
Yeah.
That it's not the same as like astral projection. It's completely different. Like, you're grabbing onto a chunk of time. So like usually the guys are working with something that's right now. There's no backward shift in time, and forward is a whole nother story. But getting something in the present or in the near past is, I guess, easy peasy, easy place to start. But like, what they're doing is they're taking a snapshot of a particular scene in a certain area, something specific they're looking for, and they'll see it in flashes. Or they'll see a whole picture of, like, if it's the grounds of something they're looking at, And
this is where I would say that remote viewing, you're more of an audience member, whereas astral projecting, you're literally putting your soul or your entity's energy into somewhere else.
Your consciousness. I wouldn't say necessarily your soul.
I mean, call what you want, but there's the allowance
like
for
your spirit is different than your soul. Well, I think
but there's an allowance for almost a physical, or at least a cognitive interaction. There's an awareness between, you would call it, two entities. So as we've had this discussion before, where UFOs could possibly be tearing a hole in time or space, so they're not physically flying here, they're projecting themselves into here. So while they do exist, there isn't a true physical interaction other than we can witness it, we can see it or perceive it. There's no sound supposedly, but we can see it. So you're allowed an interaction on that level, whereas with remote viewing, there wouldn't be an interaction. People would not be aware that you're there. You're literally a audience member, as if you were watching it on TV in a sense.
Oh, and as far as more takeaways, the guy's interview was really interesting because actually it led more credence to the story when he would at certain points say, I can't answer that question. That's still classified.
Dude, this goes back to what we were talking about before, when you have these supposed whistleblowers and they say, I can talk about this, but I can't talk about that. Is that when you start getting into those kind of conversations, it feels very propaganda based, where
somebody was actually sitting there making decisions on what can be released and what can't.
Well, to me, it's more of,
so you're not giving me the full truth.
Yeah. Are you speaking, are you representing yourself as a whistleblower participant,
Well,
somebody
I can tell you a fantastic story, but if I don't have to show you any proofs, then I don't, like, you know what I mean? I can avoid all that, but just I told you a fantastic story, now go believe it.
in a degree,
And most people will.
well, you know, my bigger point is why I think it lends its hand to the ideation that it is propaganda. In and of itself, almost makes me want to not believe things.
Dr. Greer just has us all in our, like we're watching, like make sure people aren't trying to lie to us. That's where I feel like a lot of that's coming from, because he's the one that he came out and said, if somebody's trying to convince you that aliens are going to attack us, it's BS coming from the government. It's something that we designed that they want to use to terrorize us with. That it's not.
Which, I mean, that's always.
He's like, everything that I've gotten from everything that I've studied says these people are here to help us. And when we're ready and open enough to receive them, they will show themselves.
And I think, I mean,
CE5 and all that.
Yeah, he even, I believe, goes to the point of it seems more so an astral projection than a physical on this plane with literal physical interaction. But there seems to be an ability for a crossover for them to be within our realm.
The description sounds more like the craft that they're using doesn't have a propulsion system like we would think of. So the way that it works, it's like you're falling from place to place in space and time.
Which, if you think about it, going back to the movie The Explorers,
so like
they were talking about that bubble that they built.
Maybe this spacecraft of theirs doesn't just teleport them somewhere, take them somewhere, but it actually changes their vibrational pattern to slow it down enough to bring them physically here, which is a whole different.
Well, that's talking about like sixth dimension dropping into the third and fourth, which is what we perceive.
So whether they're from another star system or not, like they're literally above our frequency, our.
And I mean, who's to say that those aren't
ants in an ant farm? And
but who's to say
outside.
that both of those aren't accurate expressions of what we're interpreting? You know, I mean, they both kind of say the same thing. There's something that's outside of our understanding or realm that can present itself within. Whether you want to call it frequency or...
Is it distance that separates us? I think is the question I was making. It's like aliens are they just from a far distance, or are they from a far distance and a different dimension, or are they right here? And all that machine does is slow them down enough so that they can be seen.
This is why I go back to the idea that any and all existences or outcomes are and are not simultaneously, which brings you into multiverse, string theory, entanglement, and all mashed together.
So it's all going on at the same time. Like the time is just an illusion.
Well,
everything.
Yeah.
Is. I mean,
well, because with time, you know, the fourth dimension, we're allowed to have the representation or the understanding of distance because it takes time to traverse that distance. So it's just, again, another way to express something.
It takes a certain amount of time for a certain life cycle to occur, for a certain moon cycle to occur,
but that's because that's where we're within that dimension, that fourth dimension, that dimension of time. Time is what allows us to perceive distance.
So the really wild thing to think about like a day is determined by the amount of time it takes for the Earth to rotate
the sun,
right? Yeah, for it to rotate.
Syntax error there for a second.
I'm thinking this out. So if that's not always a constant. So
what's not a constant?
A day.
It is.
Is it?
From our physical understanding of the scientific aspect of what the literal time is, that's why we have leap years, because it's.
How would we know?
This goes back to what, you know, the scientific theory is, and the fact of facts are truths. And it's like, no, they're highly reproducible information. But that goes to the philosophical expression. I know that I know nothing.
But if we were losing a half a second every week, I mean, would we notice? Would we notice? Like
Eventually.
Well, all I'm saying is all of that, a second is based on that same principle that it takes that much 24 hours roughly to have the sun appear to come up in the sky and go back down and then come up again.
I believe it's because,
But what I'm saying is that's a relative equation. Like it's not set in stone because we're all spinning and spiraling through other galaxies. Like it's not just the motions that we think of. Everything is actually in a spiral. So as we're spinning around the sun is moving and spinning around the universe. The universe is moving and spinning around other galaxies.
With no galaxies
Or not
are within,
universes, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, galaxies
Our galaxy
spinning
is
around,
spinning around other galaxies.
which is then spinning in the universe.
So, I mean, everything is actually on a spiral pattern. It's not just spinning within its own system.
I mean, that goes back to the whole Terrence Howard spherical universal math.
To me, that number would be somewhat relative. Like it could be longer, could be shorter, could be like, wouldn't it?
As you
and
said,
it's wobbling. Like there's some.
As you said, though, the expression of 24 hours. So, while 24 hours is what we deem a day, that literal measurement of time may not per se be 24 hours, but that's the consistent enough.
Good enough for government.
Well, it's the consistent enough specification that we can correlate everything to, that we can refer this as 24 hours is a day. And it takes 365 and a quarter of those for the Earth to go around the sun, which is why once every 4 years we get a leap year.
Right, a quarter, right.
We add that extra day because we've added up those quarters over 4, so now we have a full.
So far, that's worked fairly well.
Well, it keeps us on a very consistent schedule of the sun comes up and goes down every 24 hours. Whether or not we get that, but it takes 24 hours for the Earth to go around the orbit of the sun. But again, that's our perception. That's what we've classified. This is what we're basing our construct off of. So it's not wrong, but it's also not right.
So that's my only argument on that particular point is that necessarily a static number?
Currently it is, but again, we've built our model around what that
roughly.
Because if we still base it within literal hours, which is what we call it, it's 24. But that doesn't mean that there isn't another mathematical system to have that representation of time and distance that isn't 24. It could be that it's 37 parsecs. I know it's not, but that's what I'm saying is it could be. So we're just defining a system and we're classifying with what we have as a consistency that we call this 24 hours, which is 60 seconds and 60 minutes. And,
or like we've measured the effects of gravity. So there's another one, but the effects of gravity aren't necessarily the same everywhere on the planet. Well, but they're much different at the equator than they are at the north.
But there's a consistency behind that, and you can build a construct from within that.
True.
And that's all I'm saying. That's why I'm like, I agree with you.
You have to pick some kind of static measurement tool. Like this is
correct.
Overall, it's this.
Well, if you're going to have a consistency, and I mean, again, if we're talking about being built within the construct of a fourth dimension or time, which gives us the allowance for understanding or perceiving distance, but all we're doing again is we're classifying the components within our construct for us to rationalize this construct.
So I'm thinking about all these things, ghosts, spirits, whatever, they exist on a different dimension, a different plane.
Frequency.
Not different realm, but different plane than us.
But that's what I'm saying. All those words can classify the same idea.
And separated by a veil, right? I mean, that's the...
But whether they're resonating on a different frequency or they're on a physical different plane or they're...
This is a far out, weird, but... So what is it about Halloween that I've heard that reference that the veil is thinner that time of year than any other time throughout the year?
But there's also...
is this just some weird claim and it's just superstition? Or because even superstition comes from something.
Well, and there's also the claim that the witching hour is 3 a.m., but that's also 3 a.m. as the Earth moves around the sun, so that you have this period of darkness, and what it would do as far as the distance from the sun to modify the electromagnetism, which would then also modify what the overall gravitational pull is or is not, as all these different pressure differentials are interacting with each other. So not to say that it is or isn't, but again, all of these things really just paint a rationale that we can have to understand, grasp, or allow ourselves to be a part of our construct. It's just signifiers, man. Doesn't mean any of it is or is not correct. That's what I'm saying. I believe more of that whole multiverse, multi-dimensional string theory, entanglement, all of that. All of it is, which goes back to we are all one. I mean, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just I don't know. Honestly, we're both out of beer, and then we're getting like way too deep.
See, we are all one, but like I think a lot of us, it's easy to go blind to that because it's not as obvious to us in this physical form.
Not to say that it could or couldn't be, but that seems to be the general populace's perspective. But again, we're out of beer.
Oh, okay. Wrap it up, B.
We're out of beer. We're getting like way too deep.
Episode. We're just testing out the new studio.
Yeah, as we had mentioned previous in the conversation. Yeah, this is
only a test.
The same studio, different position. But yeah, this may not even make it to air, and if it does, and you're actually watching this, then that's awesome. The new studio is rocking.
I'm trying not to look at the camera. I apologize.
But yeah, this has been a good conversation because it's also been one that we haven't been doing this for a while. So
and like.
You did it less this episode.
I really have to work on that.
You did it less this episode than previous, but
that's good.
That's all right. You at home, if you love what we're doing, hit us in the comments. If you want to continue the conversation, hit us in the comments. You can also look in the description. There'll be our emails and things, so you can always reach out to us.
That, like over here somewhere.
We are not.
Oh, okay.
Down below in the description. Hit us in the comments. We'll get back to you. We always do.
Do that. I like when that happens. I liked it.
Yeah. And honestly, we've been at this for about 4 years, actually just over 4 years. And
I'm not counting, but it's cool.
Well, I mean, I'm not either. YouTube told me.
Did it now?
It was like, hey, happy birthday. It's 4 years now. It's like, oh crap.
A little happy birthday. Okay.
But you at home, we appreciate you.
We love you, Danger Mouse. We love you.
Thank you for letting us be us. And
thanks for putting up with me.
Yeah. But,
all this time.
For the 4 years, going from audio to where we're at now and still growing personally, but also within this, entertainment subsidiary, whatever the hell, some business term, some shit. This
little corner of the world.
That too.
Whatever.
But, we do appreciate you. Thank you for being with us for as long as you have. Thanks for continuing the conversation and continuing to watch and interact. We appreciate that. It means a lot to us.
Talk to each other. It's important. It's good stuff.
And check in on your people as well as yourself. All that good shit.
Because we love you, but I can't see you, and you have people near you that can see you, and you should probably let them know that you love them.
In case they can't see you and you see them.
And talk about whatever you feel like talking about, as long as it's not, hurtful or
have an appreciative, open, organic conversation.
Or makes you sound crazy.
With yourself or others, which could make you.
Sorry. Yes, absolutely. Thanks.
But we'll see you again next time. So be good to yourself. Be good to everything else.
Much love.
Peace.
Peace. Old school.
Yeah, we gotta hit buttons and
wrap it up, B.